اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوكل إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمن محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله يا إمام الرحمن يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشعرنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد يا قرة عين الرسول يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيهة عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها المصطفى يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الفاضل يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وسيم الحسن والخلق الحجة الله والمنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله حاجات يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وابدتي وفقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من طول الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله الظالمين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد سورة البارك الفاتحة على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. The earth, the sky, creation cries. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. Your ummah that believed in you, your ummah that claims to love you, this same ummah, it turned away. It is power, not deen they crave, not even there to dig your grave. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. Wahi, this link is now broken. With it our hearts are too broken. Even Ali, Asadullah, breaks down with grief for his master. What pain grips the heart of Zahra? Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. Can I forget that dark Thursday, a pen to not be led astray? Your every word from Almighty, and yet He dared call you crazy. That mal'oon blackened history. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. For bringing deen, no urger asked. You only left one simple task. Towards my nearest family, love them and treat them with mercy. But what would be their destiny? Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. After your death, what did they do?
In streets our Mawla was dragged through. No peace for Zahra and Ali. The door you kissed, what did it see? The shattered ribs, Muhsin Shaheed. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. Rasulullah, your tragedy, the start of years of misery. The seeds planted in Saqifa bore evil fruit in Karbala. Injustice until our Savior Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. After your death, what did they do? In streets our Mawla was dragged through. No peace for Zahra and Ali. The door you kissed, what did it see? The shattered ribs, Muhsin Shaheed. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. The earth, the sky, creation cries. Rasulullah has left this world. So now my grief will never end. Rasulullah has left this world. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات الفاتحة. Mu'mineen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to start by extending our condolences first to the Imam of our time and to all the mu'mineen around the world as we commemorate the shahadat of our beloved Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Amir al-Mu'min alayhi salam has said, opportunities pass by like the passing of a cloud and is caused by loss of opportunities. Mu'mineen, we are still short of reaching our target for fundraising for the month of Safar. Our target for the Safar programs is £3,500. At present, we have currently raised approximately £1,600. Mu'mineen, on this evening, on this night where we commemorate the Shahadat of our beloved Holy Prophet, please take this opportunity to consider making a donation so that we can support our Safar programs and to continue to provide these programs in memory of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. You can donate using the links that have been circulated by email or WhatsApp, or alternatively, feel free to approach myself. Today's program, inshallah, is for the Isal Thawab of Marhum Muhammad Jafar Ahmad Nanji Kara. Can I please request the Surah Fatiha for him and for the Marhumeen of the JM Jafar and Nur Muhammad families, Surah Al-Mubarakatul Fatiha. Can I request also a second Surah Fatiha recitation for Marhum Naushad Muhammad Sulaiman, Marhum Mazahir Muhammad Taki Muraj, Marhum Mullah Muhammad Rahim, and for all Marhumeen Al-Fatiha. Mu'mineen, we have also received a request regarding a Mu'min brother who is facing health difficulties at the moment. For him and for all of those who are marid, can I please request that we all recite together 5 times Amma Yujibul Muttar, inshallah, all together. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل خرجه. Mu'mineen, Alhamdulillah, we are honored this evening to be hosting Shaykh Afzal Merali, who will be delivering the Majlis for us this evening. Shaykh Afzal is an Islamic scholar specializing in Islamic sciences and law, with a keen interest in Islamic and religious history and the methodology of Tabligh. He is a lecturer at the Hawza Ilmiya of England and is currently studying for a master's degree in Quranic sciences and tafsir. Shaykh Afzal started his Hawza studies in the UK, after which he migrated to Lebanon, studying in its Hawzas for 10 years, and then moved to Qum and continued his studies there for 5 years, at the level of Dars al-Kharij, during which time he worked extensively in Tabligh and the media. As we welcome Shaykh Afzal for the Majlis, can I please request all the mu'mineen to recite the loudest of your salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى اللهم صل على
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
For the present sake of Sahib al-Zaman, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
To console the hearts of Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen on the loss of her father and her grandchildren, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا رسول الله، يا خاتم المرسلين ويا رحمة للعالمين. صلى الله عليك وعلى المظلومين المضطهدين المهضومين. ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من التجأ إليكم سادتي. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. To hasten the appearance of our Imam Sallallahu Alaihi Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
My respected elders, respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. On behalf of us all, I extend our condolences to the Imam of our time, Imam Hujjah. Ajal Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, on this sad occasion of the martyrdom of his holy grandfather, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. My dear brothers and sisters, when we stop at the personality and the biography of the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him and his progeny, it is important to draw always lessons from his life, but to also understand his life, his mission, his plan of action, based on his status quo and based on the context of life and the circumstances that he was living in. If we were to study his mission from a strategic perspective, in order to draw lessons from him, because of the fact, the importance of this being that there has never been in history such a fundamentally impressive figure, impressive in the sense that the impression or the effect that the personality of the Holy Prophet had in the Arabian Peninsula and actually globally in such short period of a time. This has been unparalleled. He is the most successful leader. in humanity, period. So this calls for a person to not only superficially, read that Rasulullah, this day he was born, and this day he was married, and this day he, for example, passed away. No, we have to study his life in order to draw lessons from it. At that, we need to look at, first of all, the surroundings and the circumstances, the situation that the Holy Prophet was sent into, the environment, if I were to say. Secondly, it is also necessary for us to look at what his mission was and what were his objectives. So, where did he go? What was he sent to do? On top of that, it is also important for us to see what challenges did he face? That he had these objectives. What challenges are there? What are the cons? The factors that play against him in being able to fulfill the target objectives that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. And finally, on the other hand, what has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aided him with? So what are the positive factors that will assist him in being able to fulfill his mission? If we were to start, first of all, to look at the environment that the Holy Prophet was sent into, we start, first of all, geographically. Okay? Let's just look at the area geographically. If we were to see the Arabian Peninsula, he was born in Mecca, correct? Mecca is located in the middle of the Arabian Peninsula, surrounded by scorching hot deserts that see temperatures that are really difficult to bear. In terms of vegetation and agriculture, it's extremely scarce, only in certain parts. In those times, the agricultural technology was not as it is today. So today, for example, if you go to modern day Saudi Arabia, they even grow in many parts of the deserts due to agricultural technology and irrigation systems and whatnot. But at that time, that was not possible. So in terms of vegetation, food, and growth, it was quite scarce. So this would have an effect on what you would need to see, that what food is this Arab accustomed to, because you are what you eat. So it will play a role. It will affect your temperament and your way of thinking. On the other hand, the presence of Makkah between, in this desert, it's surrounded by a desert, and this desert, if you go further south towards Yemen, you find that there are mountain ranges. There are mountain ranges over there that form a natural barrier. That from the south, this geographical spot is really difficult to attack by army. It's very difficult to attack. On the north, you find that the northern desert, it formed a strategic depth. In Arabic, strategic terms is called al-umq strategy, meaning the strategic depth. What does this really strange terminology mean? It means that a country, in order to protect itself, it needs to have certain parts of land or areas, whether within it, in its peripheries, or in the other country that is next to it, which would serve as a barrier and a protective piece of land that would help it defend from any invasive armies. Now, towards the north, if you look, there was the Sassanid Persian Empire, there was the Ghassani Arab Empire, a smaller sub-empire. It could have been even a vassal empire. Vassal empire that the main rulers were the Byzantines, but they were just the local rulers. Just like was the case when the Romans first invaded Palestine, and they toppled the regime or the government or the empire of Judea, the state of Judea. Now, we see that we had the Ghassanis on the one side, towards the north, towards Jordan, and on the other side you have the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Romans. Although they did not have any interest in coming towards to the south, because they consider that this is an empty piece of land. Neither do they seem to have any natural resources. neither lots of agriculture. The population over there is not a really big population, it's just sand. And on top of that, if they were to even think about taking over the likes of Mecca and Medina, because they were so small on the one hand, and on the other hand, there was a big long journey that the army would have to take in the scorching desert. So this is called the strategic depth. There was a depth of land, there was a space of land that would form a natural barrier against any invasive armies. So they would say that, now what does this do? When bigger empires did not come and take over the Arabian Peninsula, what happened is that there was a group of people living in a tribal format, no centralized government that would oppose the Holy Prophet, just like during the time of Nabi Yahya with Herodes. Just like during the time of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam with Namrud, Nabi Nuh alayhi salam and the elite of his people, Nabi Idris and the king of his time, and others, Nabi Musa and Pharaoh. There is no central army to oppose him. There is no central army. What is there? Quraysh is in power. Quraysh has sub-clans. Amongst them, Banu Hashim was one of the most powerful. But there was always a conflict, or if you wish, a strive and a kind of a contest between the Banu Umayyah and Banu Hashim. But Banu Hashim always had the upper hand. How did these tribes survive in trying to get the upper hand? There was something which was called the alliances, Hilf. For example, before the Holy Prophet was sent, or my apologies, I believe in the early part of his life, there was an attack that was happening, and some of the tribes they got together, which was called Hilf al-Fudul. And Sayyid al-Shuhada salamullahi alayhi, he even mentions this Hilf al-Fudul later on. He even mentions this Hilf al-Fudul later on. So when there is this Bedouin tribal system, there is no central government, no central army, nobody to directly oppose the Holy Prophet. If you wanted to seek what? If you wanted to seek to start a religion and a movement and a reformist movement. On the other hand, we find they had certain practices in order to increase their numbers. One of them was called al-istilhaq. Istilhaq, and again, this shows how petty some of these tribesmen were, that some of the immoral practices that they used to have. So if there is a child outside, they would just say that, okay, this is my son. You chose such an immoral act, this is my son. And this was even found during the time of Muawiyah and Sayyid al-Shuhada when Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, the son of Marjana, Muawiyah said, this is not the son of Ziyad, is the son of my father. Or even Ziyad himself, he is the brother of Abu Sufyan. So both son and father. So the Imam ﷺ said, "Inna da'i ibn da'i qad rakaza bayna ithnatayn," meaning that the claimant or the claimed son, Ibn Ziyad, son of the claimed son, the son of Ziyad, he has settled and he wants to have either of the two, either to come and have an onslaught and a war against me, or to attempt to humiliate me. And then the Imam said, وَهَيْهَاتَ مِنَّ اللَّهِ. And how far is, and never will we agree to humiliation. So you have this. On top of that, how do they survive? You have to look at their economy as well. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because this helps you to understand that how much wealth can they possibly accumulate in such a scenario, in such a society, and this will play a role in how much they can prevent the Holy Prophet from being able to fulfill his mission. They did not have big cosmopolitan buildings. There were different groups of Arabs before them like the Nabateans of the north during the time of Nabi Salih alayhi salam. Today, if you go, describe the city Al-Hijr. Surah Al-Hijr in the Holy Quran, it's referring to these people, the Nabateans. And if you go currently, Saudi Arabia, they want to restart tourism to some of these old, ancient sites that they say, heritage sites, according to the UN. These are places where the adab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually befell. So how did those people used to live? They used to build houses out of what? Out of mountains. But at the same time, they had a proper irrigation system. And because of this water, they were able to survive. And they used to also have trade. Now in the south, and of course south from them, it was difficult. So the scarcity of water, the central position of the well of Zamzam itself, but at the same time, how much did the well of Zamzam have? And the fact that everybody had to depend on it. All of these were factors in how big the city of Makkah could grow and how much they could depend on it for agriculture, etc. What did they used to depend on? They used to depend on trade. Correct? They used to depend on trade. Secondly, they used to depend on raids, raiding each other and just stealing everything. They used to live like this. And animal husbandry. And shortly, to a certain extent, or to a limited extent, date farming. And some limited agriculture. Now you can see that the society itself, it looks to be a fairly, if you compare it to, if you were to compare it to the empire of the Persians at that time. That was a big cosmopolitan empire that would have really hampered the efforts of the Holy Prophet to establish Islam. But over there, it was not possible. So Allah's hikmah, His wisdom was very, very accurate in the fact that the Holy Prophet was sent to Makkah in such a scenario. But this is, in general, what is said about the circumstances. One point to add, religion was controlled by the elite. And this is always a big problem. When religion is controlled for financial gains, for political influence by the elite, businessmen, by the merchants, it was these people who were always against the Holy Prophet when he was trying to spread the message of Islam. Why? Because he was telling them that you businessmen and you slave, you are the same. All of you start from Adam Islam. Now Abu Sufyan cannot accept that. Correct? He's a businessman. You can't go and tell Bill Gates, for example, that me and you were the same. Or you can or tell him, for example, a beggar outside, that all of us the same. You don't have any more importance. You come to the masjid, you come to, Niyaz, will treat you both the same. It doesn't matter how expensive your suit is. So this is not acceptable to all of them. In addition to the fact that the Holy Prophet's message in Islam, we have a lot of guidelines that we have to follow by. For them, they used to openly commit these. So again, in the religious side, it was them who was affected by the message of Islam. Mission objectives, we recite in the Holy Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَالَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. Correct? These are some of what, if we read the Holy Quran, this is just one verse that indicates what the goals of the Holy Prophet and the message of Islam were. That was the scenario. What are the goals? First of all, he has to teach them the Holy Quran. Secondly, he has to explain the messages of the Holy Quran. Thirdly, he also has to teach them to purify themselves, to learn tazkiyat the-nafs. How do you practically go about bettering and perfecting yourself? There is tazkiyat the-nafs, it's a part of it. Disciplining yourself. You join the army, you are told to discipline yourself. How you view yourself, how you view your limits. Similarly, in Islam, this is a major part of the message of Islam. Tazkiyat the-nafs. So I really suggest that when you go home, just open it, just Google it, Tazkiyat the-nafs, and see what comes up, and try to implement that. Also, on top of that, the fact that the Holy Prophet had to teach them hikmah, wisdom in how to live practically in life, also the ahkam of Islam, how to deal with each other, how to treat each other, mannerisms, the beautiful ethics and etiquette of Islam. Now, on top of that, the Holy Prophet also had to teach them how to plan and run things. He had to free the oppressed. We had many slaves who were under the oppressive control of people, like for example Bilal was, and Ammar ibn Yasir and others. On top of that, he had to teach them, amongst the things related to the nafs, is humility. On top of that as well, to destroy a lot of their ill practices, some of things that they would create and then they would ascribe to Allah, that this is a part of what Allah's message was. This was not. And in the Holy Quran, there are many, many instances where Allah has rebuked them. He has scolded them. Why are you ascribing this to me? I didn't say this is halal or this is haram. I didn't say this. On top of that, he had to perform miracles in order to prove his prophethood. But one of the most important things was the fact that he had to engage in religious dialogue with scholars of other religions in order to invite them to Islam and to refute and talk about and deal with doubts that were purposely being spread with the niyyah of kalimatu haqqin yuradu biha batil. That sometimes they would say things that would seemingly be strong arguments or correct arguments, but their intentions were something else. Their intentions were something else. I just wanted to misguide people from going towards the Holy Prophet. And as a result, when these sometimes it would not work, they would accuse him of either being insane, or being a magician, or being a poet. You find all of these three descriptions in the Holy Quran. And then, of course, going to the extent of some instances that I will mention that are physical threats at his life, violence, like in Ta'if, it would be stones. Sometimes people would throw garbage in front of him. There would also be economic embargoes when they were embargoed in the mountain passes of Abi Talib, salamullahi alayhi. Now, over here today, I would just like to address one particular issue that has come up, and some people are seemingly presenting arguments that may, for some of our laymen, seem to be correct, but in fact they are not. And they are extremely baseless and very weak conjectures. They are not fully formed methodological arguments. The fact that some people are doubting based on their understanding of the verses of the Holy Quran, based not on the interpretations of the Ma'sumin, salamullahi alayhim, or the Mufassirin based on their studies. No. They have their own understanding of how they want to read the Holy Quran. Take it totally out of context, leave the ta'wil aside, leave the different types of tafsir aside. No, they just look at it, they read. If they understand something, they say, okay, this is what it is. The issue of not accepting the existence of 12 Imam and using the terminology of today's apps and websites and Microsoft and others, we want a two-step verification process from the Holy Quran. So this kind of terminology, let us analyze it, right? It's in order to attract you, youth. You know, if I use this kind of terminology, it's to attract you, to sound flashy. Okay, let us apply to the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran, when some of the mushrikeen, they were claiming that the malaika were female, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rebuked them on the tongue of the Holy Prophet. The fact that, first of all, did you witness their birth? No, you didn't, in order to know that they were actually created female. And secondly, do you have any evidence, any scriptures that have told you that they are like that? No, you don't. Now, if they, according to some of their understandings, if they were to apply this to the 12th Imam Sharif, they are claiming, right, that if we are asking you, did you witness his birth? So we will say no. Okay. And secondly, do we have any mention of this in Islamic sources? So they want to say no, right? It's as if we have brought up this concept out of our pockets, yeah, in order to keep ourselves alive and going, so that we can continuously come to the masjid. Otherwise, we do not have any other purpose, seemingly. If I were to answer this, first of all, this is only based on a speculation. This is only what? This is based on a speculation. And these kinds of dhunun, incomplete arguments, these conjectures, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually, He vehemently speaks about them. He scolds people for having these kind of dhunun, these kind of misconceptions or doubts, purposely made doubts. How can you apply this ghaibi test on certain things and not apply it to others? So for instance, we have certain personalities and certain prophets. Neither do we witness their birth. At the same time, their names have not been mentioned in the Holy Quran. Their names have not been mentioned in the Holy Quran. So we say that they weren't born or they weren't prophets. Is this selective methodology acceptable? Secondly, with regards to this methodology, if they truly want to apply it, then if they are honest, they should apply it with regards to everything. Now, the main problem that is coming is the fact that they are saying that he is not mentioned in the Holy Quran. First of all, I beg to differ. But secondly, to even have this methodology, that I only want stuff from the Holy Quran, this is in itself a tailless and an incomplete methodology to studying Islam. Because the Holy Prophet he specifically said in Hijjat al-Wada that I am leaving behind me 280 things. 280 things, not just one, two. According to some of the wordings of Hadith al-Thaqalain, he said that one of them is samit, one of them is silent, as the Holy Quran. The words are limited, their meanings are deep, but it needs its people to explain. That is why Ahlul Bayt will not separate from them until the day of Qiyamah. So we have to refer to their Sunnah. The Holy Quran by itself does not tell me that Fajr is 2 rakat. It does not tell me that Fajr is 2 rakat. What do I do? I just say, "Bas, okay, yeah. I don't know, I can't find it in the Holy Quran." No, that's not acceptable. Secondly, there are many verses of the Holy Quran that actually refer to the existence of the 12th Imam, Ajallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. So for instance, in the 9th surah, verse number 33, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, هو الذي أرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. But it is he who has sent his prophet with the guidance and the religion of truth, that he may make it prevail over all religions, even though the polytheists, they should be averse. So I've got a question to ask. Let us, they like to use logic, they claim, okay? So let us use your logic. Today, the religion of Islam, has it prevailed over all other religions? Just be frank. Has it? No, it has not. It is not the sole only message that people follow. There are many different religions, right? And there are certain religions that have more followers. There are more Christians than are Muslims. So does that mean that the Holy Prophet did not fulfill his promise, or the ayah is wrong, God forbid? No, on the contrary. The fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لِيُظْهِرَهُ عَلَى الدِّينِ كُلِّهِ, there is no mention in this ayah that this is to be within the life of the Holy Prophet only. Secondly, if you were to refer to mufassirin, for example, even Sunni mufassirin, because unfortunately, these people, they are quicker to accept texts from our brothers Ahl Sunnah, more so than ourselves, with outrageous claims, the fact that we rely on weak narrations, or the fact that we rely on narrators that have been narrated by people that they consider to be exaggerators, mughali, they consider to be. Although the definition of a mughali, an exaggerator, it has been given by our fuqaha, it has been given by our scholars to be something that is totally different. They consider anybody who gives their a divine rank to the Ma'sumin, to the Imams, and Ahlul Bayt al-Islam, to the Holy Prophet, a high rank that is higher than normal human beings or normal scholars. They consider this to be exaggerative. That the Imams, they don't have what? Something which is called existential authority. Wilayat takwiniyah. The fact that they can change things in reality, in this world, or even in the higher realms, with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask logically, let us be logical. How is it possible for you to deny the existence of wilayat takwiniyah by the fact that the prophets they did not have them, when if you refer to the Holy Quran, what are all of these miracles? How did they do them? Just explain to me. Nabi Isa alayhi salam, he is ascribing this action to himself by saying bi'idhnillah. وَأَخْلُقُ لَكُم مِّنَ الطِّينِ كَهَيْئَةِ الطَّيْرِ فَأَنفُخُ فِيهِ فَيَكُونُ طَيْرًا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. That I create from clay the shape of a bird. I am doing it with my hands. And then I'm blowing in it, and it will turn into a bird, a living bird, with the permission of Allah. This is wilayat takwiniyah, a special ability that Allah has given them to prove their prophethood, to prove their imam. So for them, they consider that if you say this, you're exaggerating. And arguments, I'm telling you, sometimes they are just arguments for the sake of being argumentative. Just for the sake of being stubborn. Now, the fact that the Imam alayhi salam exists, this verse that I just read, in Tafsir al-Qurtubi, even the brothers Ahl Sunnah, who do not believe in the fact that the Imam has been born, even they say that this verse is referring to what? Al-Imam al-Mahdi. Another verse, بَقِيَةُ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ مُؤْمِنِينَ. In Nur al-Absar by Shablanji, he explains that what is meant by this, بَقِيَةُ اللَّهِ is بَقِيَةُ اللَّهِ, بَقِيَةُ اللَّهِ. And many other verses. Many other verses. So, in essence, if we look at this, these are just one example of what the Holy Prophet used to do and applying it to the context of our time. The Holy Prophet ﷺ himself, in a narration that is mentioned both in Sunni and in Shia sources, he confirms the presence of an Imam. And he was one of the first personalities to use a phrasing that has today become coined by Holy Prophet ﷺ. Which is what? That the Al-Qa'im, when he reappears, he will come at a time لِيَمْلَأَهَا عَدْلًا وَقِسْطًا بَعْدَمَا مُلِئَتْ ظُلْمًا وَجَوْرًا. That he will, these words, he will come to fill the earth with fairness and justice after it has been filled with what? Zulm, tyranny and oppression. Just write these words, zulm and jawr. Look at all of the imams, they don't use any other words. They don't say the word hadum. Again, it's also one of the variations of oppression. They don't say ittihad, persecution. They use zulm and jawr. It was there from the time of the Holy Prophet. That the Holy Prophet, when he came, one of his missions was what? To make sure that there's going to be a continuity of this message. Because this message is the final message. It has continued to the day of Qiyamah. But can it continue without an enforcer? No, it can't. So the enforcer, the final enforcer, who will be the one to fulfill a promise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made in Tawrat, in Zabur, and in other books of the prophets, sallallahu alayhi, If you open the Bible right now, the Old Testament, you go to the Psalms. If I'm not mistaken, the chapter number 48, start from verse number 11. Read onwards. And look at how the promises of Prophet Jeremiah, Nabi Ermiah were. Again, this is one of the prophets whose name is neither mentioned in the it's not mentioned in the Holy Quran. Okay? But he was an established prophet. There are narrations about this. So he, sallallahu alayhi, he mentions that the earth is going to be inherited by, he uses the word that has been translated, the meek. Meek not meaning weak-minded. No, the meek meaning those who are quick to submit to the will of God. So this promise has started from that time. And it needs a person to fulfill it. So how can all of these indications, that logical indications, just in order to, and in the end to come out that there is no proof. To end with this one more thing before I go to my Messiah. The fact that the existence of the Imam alayhi salam, it is an established and accepted tenet, a core tenet of you being a Shia Ithna Ashari. A person who does not believe in it. And this is again a belief that has been taught from the time of the Holy Prophet. The Imams alayhi salam, all of them have talked about it. And all of them have talked about him. There are many narrations about this. Just to come and just claim, give a collective claim. We don't have time to go to scrutinize the narrations, but collectively claim that there is no basis for this. Yes, there is. Even in the Holy Quran, you have to go and see, what did Allah mean? You can't just come and say that this is what Allah means because this is what I understand. You have to see what the Creator and the person who is explaining on behalf of the Creator, what he said. For instance, if you were to say a sentence that may have many layers of meanings, and then I come and tell you, but I give you a certain explanation and say, this is what you meant. Tell us, I said, this is what you meant, and I'm going to act upon that. Yourself, your assistants, all of them that will come to say, but no, this is not what he meant. His meaning was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it also applies in certain situations, in these situations. And it does not at all mean what you have understood. This is what is happening right now. We have tafsir of the Holy Quran. We have the apparent linguistic meanings of the words. And then we have the mutun. The apparent linguistic meanings. Some verses are general. So if one interpretation has been mentioned, it does not mean that it is restricted only to that. For instance, that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, according to some of our narrations, at their front has always been Amirul Mu'mineen sallallahu alayhi and he has been one of the most direct people who has been meant by this ayah. But does that mean that the ayah only applies to him? No. So when we say that we're talking about Amir al-Mu'mineen, but it could apply to others, this is called tafsir misdaqi, meaning that Imam Ali is an example over here. But secondly, we have something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even explicitly says, certain ayat are mutashabihat, and other verses are mutashabih, meaning their meaning is not really explicitly clear. So in order to understand them, you have to go to ar-rasikhuna fil ilm. Allah says go to them. You need to go to those people who know and who have been taught and addressed by the book itself. You can't just come and take the book out of its context and say, this is what is meant. And finally, the ta'weel of the Holy Quran, meaning the inner spiritual meanings that a ma'soom can access through his enlightened spirit and connection to the world of ghaib. These are endless. These meanings are endless. And from this source of knowledge are the ma'soomeen referred to in the Holy Quran. They are sometimes referred to by titles. Allah doesn't say in the Holy Quran, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi. He does not say, for example, Ali ibn Abi Talib. There are many, many different ways how titles of Allah has been very eloquent in referring to them. When you refer to a person by name, so I can come and also name my son that name. There's going to be a confusion. Which, for example, who is meant? Is it that person or my son? The Abbasids, they named themselves, they spread the name Mahdi quite a lot. Why? Because they wanted to try to say, to confuse the other people that, we are the Mahdi, you have to follow us. Huh? The mass is telling them. One of their caliphs was called al-Mahdi. So from this, we come to find that many of Ahlul Bayt, especially the Prophet Imam al-Islam, he has been referred to in the Holy Quran by title. One of them is what? Baqiyatu. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten his reappearance. Sallallahu alaihi Mu'mineen, Mu'minat, if we have a look at the personality of the Holy Prophet, he was truly an embodiment of being the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When he went to Ta'if in the 10th year in order to spread Islam, and he was faced with the violence that he was faced with from the people of Ta'if when they started to stone him, to the extent that his body started to bleed. And then he took a rest near a tree when he had distanced himself from them. He turned towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his munajat and his dua is mentioned in some of the texts. Instead of cursing them, instead of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to destroy them, what did he say? Allahumma ilayka ashku da'fa quwwati, that, oh Allah, it is to you that I complain the weakness of my strength. I do not have any strength. Wa qillati hilati, I do not know what to do. I don't have any plans. I don't have any schemes. وَهَوَانِي عَلَى النَّاسِ, and the fact that people are taking me as just a light person that does not have any value. Ya Arhamar Rahim, O the most merciful. Anta Rabbul Mustadafin, you are the Lord of the oppressed and weakened people. Wa Anta Rabbi, and you are my Lord. Ila man takiluni, who are you diverting me to? Who are you putting my affair? In whose hands are you putting my affair? إِلَى بَعِيدٍ يَتَهَجَّمُنِي, to somebody who is distant from me, who does not know me, to the extent that he starts to attack me. Oh Allah, are you giving that kind of distant person who does not know me, or have any emotions or affection towards me, or does not have a good heart, are you putting my affair in his hands? أَمْ إِلَى عَدُوٍ مَلَكْتَهُ أَمْرٍ, or have you put my affairs in the hands of my enemy? إِن لَمْ يَكُنْ بِكَ عَلَيَّ غَضَبٌ فَلَا أُبَالِي, but oh Allah, if you are not angry with me, if you are not angry with me, then I do not care. It does not matter to me. وَلَكِنْ عَافِيَتُكَ هِيَ أَوْسَعُ لِي, it is your afiyah. But even though you may have done this, but your afiyah, it is more wider for me, it is broader for me. For you to put me in good conditions, it is better for me. أعوذ بنور وجهك الذي أشرقت له الظلمات, till the end of the chapter. Look at these sweet words and how the Prophet speaks to his Creator. Habib speaks to his Habib. You want to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you want to be able to feel Him and His presence. The thing is that we are so engrossed in this dunya that to us, I feel the presence of each other more than we feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is closer to us than the Jabir. But the Holy Prophet felt the presence of Allah. This is how much love he had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a Habib speaking to his Habib. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase your reward, O mu'mineen, a'adham Allah lakum al-ajr. When the Holy Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he felt that his death had come near, he started to give people his wasaya, and he started to warn people from the fitna and from becoming divided amongst themselves. He then ordered Osama bin Zayd ibn Haritha to get ready in order to go and his army in order to face the Romans. The Holy Prophet, what he wanted to do is that in those final days of his sickness, he wanted to make sure that when he passed away, things would transfer to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam softly. But alas, he wanted, but other people also wanted to scheme. Mu'mineen, Mu'minat, when the Holy Prophet was in his sickness, according to certain accounts, when he was in the home of one of his wives, and she was trying to feed him medicine, the Holy Prophet was refraining from drinking that medicine. The Holy Prophet would not refrain from drinking what was medicine, just like that. You understand what I'm trying to say? I may not need to explicitly say it. Imagine how mazloom the Holy Prophet was, that he could not openly point out that you and you are doing this to me, and you are trying to do this to my progeny, and you will do this. My dear brothers and sisters, in one of these days, Bilal started to give the adhan and Salat al-Fajr when the Holy Prophet was extremely sick. The Holy Prophet, he came to know that it is time for Salah. So he told them, I am too tired and sick, let them pray by themselves. At that, some of the women folks started to say, let my father lead prayer. Another one said, let my father lead the prayer. And you know what I'm referring to. At that, Rasulullah heard them both and he told them that you too are like those women who were in the time of Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam, and they led him to prison. And what happened to him, and they oppressed him. The Holy Prophet got Imam Ali to hold his hand and his ashab to hold his other hand, and he was not able to even lift his body by himself. But they took him towards the masjid, and that person, he had already started to get ready for prayers. The Holy Prophet told him, move aside. Imagine, read these messages and read between the lines of what Rasulullah was trying to tell us. Our Prophet prayed, and then, my dear brothers and sisters, came that Black Thursday, that dark Thursday when the Holy Prophet was in serious pain, and he was telling them as he was being unconscious and awaking, that, O Muslims, O people, go bring me some ink and parchment so that I may write a wasiyah for you, after which you will never go astray. My dear brothers and sisters, the Holy Prophet ﷺ, as he asked for this, you all know what happened. You all know what clamor filled the house. You all know the accusations against Rasulullah ﷺ, that he was hallucinating, ma'allah. At that, when they started to raise their voices quite a lot, the Holy Prophet becomes upset. And then he tells them, leave me, because you should not scream and raise your voices in the presence of Rasulullah. My dear brothers and sisters, when the poison, and I now mention this explicitly, had taken a really big effect on the body of the Prophet, because this was not just any sickness. His body had turned black. This was the situation of Rasulullah's body. And he would fall unconscious every now and then. He was not able to wake up. This is what some schemers had done to our Holy Prophet, the beloved of Allah, our beloved, whom we remember in our salawat daily. Habibullah. My dear brothers and sisters, after this happened, Banu Hashim, they come to the Holy Prophet, and then the Holy Prophet tells them that you are the Mustadafun after me. And they started to weep and they started to cry. My dear brothers and sisters, upon this, it is said that Jabir bin Abdullah Ansari narrates that Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, she comes to our Prophet. She comes to her father and she sees his health like this. And she knew that her father was her protector during her life. And even before she had gotten married, some of those who were in the house of the Holy Prophet sometimes made her cry. Sometimes they would make her cry, either by telling her things that would make her cry, or by ridiculing her mother, Sayyidah Khadija Salamullahi alayha. My dear brothers and sisters, she came to her father and she tells him, Wa kurba li kurbika ya abata. What a big calamity is this, your calamity, oh my father. The Holy Prophet, he tries to console his daughter and he tells her, La kurba ala abiki ba'da al-yawma ya Fatima. There is no musibah that will befall your father after today, oh Fatima. Then he tells her that, oh my daughter, that if I pass away, then say what I said when your brother Ibrahim passed away. I said that the eyes they tear, and that the heart may feel pain, but we do not say anything that may anger the Lord. And after this, my dear brothers and sisters, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam comes and enters. And he brings with him Al-Hasanain with him. And you all know the scene. You all know how Imam Al-Hasan and Imam Hussein used to love the Holy Prophet. He used to take them, he used to play with them, and he used to carry them wherever he would go. They would enter the mosque when he would be praying. Imam Al-Hussein would climb on his back in sujood. The Holy Prophet would remain. The Holy Prophet would extend his sujood, but he would not want to disturb Hussein. Once the Holy Prophet was giving a khutbah, Imam Al-Hussein was young. And as he was walking, he had just learned to walk. He was falling down. The Holy Prophet descends from his mimbar to carry Imam Hussein with him on top of the mimbar. The Holy Prophet wanted to give that special emotion and love to Imam Hussein, to Imam Al-Hassan, because of what was going to later happen to them. My dear Mu'mineen, when they came and saw their grandfather in that situation, in his illness, as he was falling unconscious, they came and they threw themselves on Rasulullah. Sayyidah Fatima Ali wanted to pull them aside in order not to hurt the Prophet. The Prophet tells Imam Ali, Da'huma atazawwadu minhuma wa yatazawwadani minni. That, oh Ali, leave them. I want to fill my heart with them and they from me. I want to see them, I want to smell them. I want to embrace them, oh Ali, because, oh Ali, these two are really soon going to be killed by my ummah. They are going to be killed in a very violent way. As for Hussein, he is going to be killed and beheaded in Karbala, and there is not going to be anyone to help him and support him. At that, Mu'mineen, they all started to weep. Imam Ali alayhi salam then turns towards the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet tells Imam Ali, oh Ali, place my hand on your lap. Place my hand on your lap and bring yourself closer to me. The Holy Prophet started to whisper his final wasiyah. أعظم الله لكم الأجر. And then all of a sudden, oh Mu'mineen, the soul of the Holy Prophet departs to his Lord. Inna lillah, the Holy Prophet passes away. Mu'mineen, but can you imagine how the situation was? Oh Mu'mineen, can you imagine how difficult this musibah was? As Imam Ali, he describes this in some of his riwayat, he was saying that we were feeling so much grief that we couldn't even speak properly, coherently. That is how much grief we had felt. Mu'mineen, Imam Ali alayhi salam gets Rasulullah ready. Oh Mu'mineen, after burying Rasulullah, they come to Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. What did our lady Fatima say? Her father and her protector protector had passed away and he was buried. He was no longer there. Oh Mu'mineen, she says, كيف طاوعتكم أنفسكم أن تهيلوا التراب على وجه رسول الله. How did your souls, how did your hearts accept to cover the face of Rasulullah in the grave? And then she started to weep. It is also mentioned, O Mu'mineen, the Masa'ib of Sayyidina Zahra started. It is also narrated, O Mu'mineen, that she came to the grave of her father and she started to complain of what had started to befall upon her. She says, ماذا على من شم تربة أحمد ألا يشم مدى الزمان غواليا صبت علي مصائب لو أنها صبت على الأيام صرن لياليا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا على محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم إنا نسألك باسمك العظيم الأعظم العز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم إنا نسألك بحق الزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها يا الله. Oh Allah Azza wa Jalla said the appearance of our 12th Imam ya Allah. Oh Allah, grant us the success of being amongst his followers, amongst being his true companions, and those who support him and defend him on our march beside him ya Allah. Oh Allah Azza wa Jalla, accept our amal. Oh Allah Azza wa Jalla, fulfill our hajat, forgive our sins. Oh Allah Azza wa Jalla, have mercy on our marhumin. Grant shifa to our marid, Ya Allah. Oh Allah Azza wa Jalla, those of us who have a haja, those of us who do not have righteous progeny, oh Allah Azza wa Jalla, bless them with it, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, send the thawab of what we have recited towards the graves of our marhumin, along with the thawab of Surah Al-Mubarakah Al-Fatiha before it, Allah salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد.
Fatima Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein.
नाना तेरी उम्मत से तेरा दीन बचा कर लाई है, तेरी बेघर ज़ैनब आई है। ऐ नाना तेरी उम्मत से तेरा दीन बचा कर लाई है, तेरी बेघर ज़ैनब आई है। ऐ नाना तेरी उम्मत से तेरा दीन बचा कर लाई है, तेरी बेघर ज़ैनब आई है। ओ तेरी बेघर ज़ैनब आई है, तेरी बेघर ज़ैनब आई है, बेचादर ज़ैनब आई है, तेरा दीन बचा कर लाई है। ऐ नाना तेरी उम्मत से तेरा दीन बचा कर लाई है, तेरी बेघर ज़ैनब आई है। پوچھا جو کسی نے زینب سے بائی ہے کہاں تو زینب نے پوچھا جو کسی نے زینب سے بائی ہے کہاں تو زینب نے ایک موٹی خاک اٹھائی ہے ایک موٹی خاک اٹھائی ہے اور خاک ہوا میں اڑائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے اے نانا تیری امت سے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے اے نانا تیری امت سے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب قرآن کا جو شبیر کا سر مقتل میں سمو سے روند گیا قرآن کا جو شبیر کا سر مقتل میں سمو سے روند گیا جزتا تھا جو تن کا کرتا جزتا تھا جو تن کا کرتا وہ خون میں ڈوبا لائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے اے نانا تیری امت سے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے اے نانا تیری امت سے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے تیری بے گھر بے جاؤ جنہیں چپ دروازے ثابت پردے بے جنبش لب بے جاؤ جنہیں چپ دروازے ثابت پردے بے جنبش لب یا گھر میں ہے ایک سناتا یا گھر میں ہے ایک سناتا یا زینب کی تنہائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے اے نانا تیری امت سے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے اے نانا تیری امت سے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب ہوتا جس نے سوار کرا جب زینب کی سواری نکلی تھی کیا جس نے سوار کرایا جب زینب کی سواری نکلی تھی اے شہر مدینہ کہاں ہے وہ اے شہر مدینہ کہاں ہے وہ زینب کی سواری آئی ہے پھر بے گھر زینب آئی ہے اے نانا تیری امت سے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے او تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے او تیری بے گھر زینب آئی ہے بے چادر زینب آئی ہے تیرا دین بچا کر لائی ہے
السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا خاتم النبيين السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدتي نساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا تسعة المعصومين من ذريتك علي بن الحسين زين العابدين ومحمد بن علي الباقر وجعفر بن محمد الصادق وموسى بن جعفر الكاظم وعلي بن موسى الرضا ومحمد بن علي الجواد وعلي بن محمد الهادي والحسن بن علي العسكري والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي المنتظر عجل الله فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهور الآن ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.
Mu'mineen, can I please kindly request you to take your seats and to please follow the instructions of the marshals and volunteers with regards to leaving the centre at set. I'd like to just take this opportunity on behalf of Wessex Jamaat to extend our gratitude to Shaykh Afzal for honouring us with his presence and his Majlis this evening. May Allah inshallah increase in your fadl and give you the tawfiq to continue spreading the message of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim wassalam, inshallah. Mu'mineen, can I request you to please, or as a token of our appreciation, gift Shaykh with the recitation of 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Jazakallah khair. Can I please request Mu'mineen to end the program by reciting one Surah Al-Fatiha for the love of all Marhameen, Surah Al-Mubarak, Al-Fatiha.